So I'm out in my dahlia field this morning, and I just wanted to talk to you about dahlia virus. I know it's a subject that we're all talking about and trying to figure out how to cope with it in our garden. I just wanted to give you a couple of thoughts and things that I use to decide what stays and what goes in my garden. So for those that are new, I'll just back up a little bit. So a couple of years ago, the American Dahlia Society conducted a test where they asked for submissions of really healthy dahlia plants. And they tested, I want to say it was around 100, I can't remember exactly. And they found that 85% or more of them had one kind of virus or another. So that information was huge, and I think it just kind of showed all of us that most dahlias have viruses. So then the next question for me is, okay, so how am I going to handle that? How can I help my dahlias thrive? You know, just like humans, like how can we keep viruses at bay, or, determine what's good and what's not and what's too far gone. So things you can do to help prevent the spread of virus or slow down. I don't think we can prevent it, but to slow it down is just making sure you sanitize at every step. So when you're pinching your dahlias, when you're cutting your dahlias, and when you're harvesting your dahlias, sanitizing between each plant is definitely something that will help. Also keeping your pests under control, making sure that there's no thrips or aphids or different things in your garden that are going to carry that virus from one plant to the next. So, just keeping those things in mind will definitely help. And then there are just situations where the plant just has tried and it's just struggling and it's not keeping up. So I want to show you some examples. I feel like are plants that have just are not doing well with the viruses and struggling. So this is my dahlia field, or this is one of them. I have several of them, but I thought I would start with this one. So the plants are, at this stage, I feel like by now I should know if they are going to be, able to thrive this season. One other thing I should mention too is how you care for your dahlia is really also going to determine how they're going to cope. So making sure you give it the best possible environment right from the get-go. Like make sure, they don't have too much water. Not enough is going to also hurt them. Make sure that you fertilize them. You would think that right at the beginning they don't need fertilizer, but they actually do. They're growing fast and quickly. So doing that, making sure that they aren't too hot, that they're not too cold when you put them out, just keeping an eye on the weather so they don't get stressed, and making sure they're hardened off, like if you start them in pots like I do. So those are things you can do too to help. So let me show you a couple things. I'm starting to remove bottom leaves because we're going to have a heat wave, and I'm worried that we're going to start dealing with powdery mildew, a whole nother subject. But okay, so back here is where it is. So if you look kind of down this row, like, you're seeing some pretty healthy stuff, pretty tall. Maybe let me move down here a little bit so you can kind of see the height. Moving along, and then you see this. And that plant is really short. It's really the leaf sets are really close together, kind of curly. Even the one next to it is looking very similar. And then we go back and we're getting tall again. So that tells me, okay, look, there's something going on with that plant. And this is Holly Hill Buttermilk, and it's one that I've actually bought a couple of times just because I wanted it so badly to see. But both times I've noticed that it does not handle virus as well. So that's an example of one that I will pull. I'm going to pull those today, which is sad because it's a really pretty flower. Last year I grew it as well, and it's very similar kind of things. So, all right. So then, and that was a different stock when I say that. All right, so we're all, as I said, I'll get you down here on this angle again. So we're going along, plant height looks good. And then here we get to a plant that is shorter than everybody around it. And this is a sad one because it's Happy Old Charm. So here's an example of one that last year I suspected it had virus, but it grew to normal height. It bloomed really well, and it was just gorgeous. So I thought, okay, some plants just kind of sit at that status quo and they do okay, even though you can tell there's hints of virus in it. But this year, this was the same plant last year. Tubers were from the same plant. One's doing a little better than the other, but even that other one is just not coping well. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull those two. I don't want to pass, along plants that aren't thriving. That's my goal. So if I feel like they're thriving in my garden, you can know if you buy tubers from me, the year that I grew them, they were, nice and tall like these are. I mean, there's a few in here that I'll be looking at, but for instance, like this one, it's shorter right now, but it's a shorter plant. Like that's what its genetics are telling me when I look at the stats. And I pinched it a little bit late too. So sometimes being short is normal, and there's also lots of lovely weeds in here. I haven't gone through this section yet. So sometimes what I'll do, like if it, is a little earlier in the season and I'm feeling like, a plant does look like it's struggling a little bit, I'll give it a little extra fertilizer, and then I'll come back and check on it in a couple weeks. And sometimes that does the trick. But at this point, I've done that and it's still not thriving. So here's another example of what I'm going to pull today. I actually pulled one yesterday, and then I thought I'm going to show you guys this in the morning before I pull any more. So this one is another sad one. This is a Canadian variety. And again, I had it last year and it did really well. So thankfully, I can only think of 2 or 3 other ones that I'm going to have to pull. So overall, I feel like we did well. And we're just getting to start to see some blooms. This is Chateau, that nice long word, but so it's going to be soon. We're going to have lots of blooms. But anyway, I hope that helps you with determining what is acceptable in your gardens and what's not. And just so you know, when you buy tubers from me, that's the standard that I hold. I know some people have stricter standards and some don't. One other thing, and I don't have an example here because I pull them right away, is if you do see a bullseye pattern on your plant and it has that throughout its leaves, then that's a mosaic type virus, and that one is one that will spread really quickly. So I usually pull those right away when I see those. But in general, mostly what you're going to be seeing is like the vein clearing, or at the beginning of the leaf, you see discoloration that kind of moves into the veins. Those are a very common one, and I find those move a little bit slower, and sometimes they'll bounce from that and recover. But if it starts to get like I had showed you, where it's overtaking the plant and it just can't grow at a normal rate, then you know that the virus is a lot stronger in that plant. Okay, hope you enjoy your garden today.